What's good, everybody? Today I'm going to be giving you some tips on how to pass the CompTIA A+ certification. Look at that. Look how clean that is. Don't look too long. No, it's mine. It's mine. What you talking about? Now, just a little insight into my background. I have no IT experience. I didn't do that good in school, and I also have been working in a retail shop for like 5 years now, and it is absolutely soul draining, bro. So that's why I'm deciding to become a cybersecurity hacking wizard pro. I mean, that's just it is what it is. Now, I just want to let you guys know that I'm not the smartest guy ever. So whatever your excuse is for, you know, looking at the exam and thinking you're not smart enough for it,
Shut up, bro.
Alright, without further ado, let's get on to the tips. Tip number 1 is to use analogies. I have found using analogies to be extremely helpful, especially since I'm new to IT and looking at these concepts is a bit daunting and I don't really understand them at times. So using analogies really helped me, especially using AI to look up the analogies or just anywhere you can find them really. Yeah, really helpful. For example, an analogy I used was for a protocol that I could not understand for the life of me called DMARC. Now what DMARC does, it kind of acts as like a bouncer. So it's like the email is coming in and then there's like the first initial authentication protocol security check going on for the email when it first comes in. And if this authentication is like, we can't really see what's going on here and we don't know what to do with you, we're going to send you to DMARC. DMARC is like the bouncer, right? And then DMARC will look at the email here and decide whether or not it's allowed to enter the destination or not. Now, this is where my analogy comes in. Here we got little Timmy right here. Little Timmy, he wants to enter the party, but he's got to go through the initial inspector first. This is the initial email authentication that happens when an email tries to get to the party. Now, if the inspector's like, okay, Timmy, you're old enough. You're allowed to enter the party. You know what? You don't have to go through the markers. You can just enter the party. But if the inspector is somewhat curious, like, does Timmy have a knife on him or something? I can't do that. I'm a little small dude. I can't deal with the knives right now. Let's send him to DeMarcus, Brad.
Come over here and kiss me on my hot mouth. I'm feeling romantical.
Now, when Timmy makes his way over to DeMarcus, DeMarcus is going to do the last authentication. He's going to be like, does he have a knife on him? Let's have a look. Now, if DeMarcus finds out Timmy doesn't have a knife on him, Timmy's allowed to enter the party. Alright? But if DeMarcus finds a knife on Timmy, then I'm sorry, Timmy. DeMarcus is picking you up like he's doing an overhead barbell press and he's throwing you out. Not gonna lie, I don't know how accurate that analogy is. It worked for me though. It helped me understand. Shout out to DeMarcus right here. Tip number 2 is using some online resources to study for this exam. So personally after doing some scavenging on Reddit, I saw that the Jason Dion practice exams are like hard, and then they're harder than the actual test, which they were. So I thought, you know, I'm putting 2 and 2 together. If I can beat the practice test, then I'll be able to beat the real exam, right? So for the practice test, I recommend going with Jason Dion. And for the actual whole learning thing, like the whole thing you go through, like learning all the subjects, I would suggest Andrew Ramdale, because Andrew Ramdale is like the only one I found to like actually feel like I'm listening to a human being, bro. This guy doesn't sound like a robot. So you two, I just gave you free promo, so give me some of that money. I know you're rolling in it. Bro, look at this guy, Jason Dion. He's got 175,000 students just on this one course. 212. And then times 15. Udemy takes a cut of this though, but he's made a lot of money from this. I just gave you free promo. Give me my cut. Give me my cut, motherfucker. There's also a guy that called Professor Messer. He makes free videos. He makes free courses on like these certificates, so he's also really good as well. So if you want to check him out, he's got a playlist for the CompTIA A+ right here, guys. Go check him out. He's also very beautiful.
Happens to affect many people with a very critical role in the organization.
There's also a place called website called Exam Compass. I use this for my core 1. You can, if you have like a specific area you're struggling with, you can look through here. It's got like a bunch of like, you know, storage. If you're having a problem with RAID, you can come here and click the RAID quiz. If you're struggling with RAM, you can click RAM. I did this for the core 1, but I think just like making solid notes where you can use active recall on them and like flashcards, going over the exam objectives, practice tests. I think if you just do all that more efficiently, you don't really need to do all this, but you can if you want. I mean, it's here. There's, you know, there's free stuff right here. Now, between you and me, search up Andrew Ramdale 100 questions CompTIA and watch like core 1 and core 2. Don't ask me why. just watch it. You know, extra practice, wink wink. I also recommend Burning Ice Tech. Burning Ice Tech has some practice questions on here. Just scour the internet for practice questions and do them over and over again. Well, not over and over again. Just do them. Do all them. Do all them that you can find. Burning Ice Tech. He has good practice questions here as well. And another thing, there are last minute review videos on YouTube as well. So if you're coming up to your exam and you just want to have a quick overview of everything, these last minute study guides right here, they will have
further than NFC.
You know, you can go through them. You can see like wherever you're struggling with. You can choose that. If you're struggling with storage devices, you can watch how all that happens as well. So last minute reviews as well. And the last online source I recommend is PowerCert Animations. There was this thing in the Core 1 that I just could not understand. It was this cable DSL fiber internet stuff. I probably forgot it by now, but listen, this guy, he makes animated videos and you can see like how they all work with animations. Bro's goated. Bro's goated. Leave a like. Tip number 3 is actually know what you're learning. When I first started studying for this exam, I caught myself like doing the practice test. Like I did a practice test and then I'll go to redo it again the next day. And I was just like memorizing the answer just because of the question. I didn't actually know why the answer was the answer. So when you're going through the practice test, you should be able to explain why something is the answer, not just because you memorize it as the answer. Now this tip might sound weird, but tip number 4 is to stay strong and accountable. My brothers and sisters, I cannot tell you how many times I procrastinated looking at this and just studying for this exam. Like sometimes I'm studying for it, I'm looking through the exam jiggers and I'm just like, oh my gosh, how am I supposed to remember all this? Deep breaths, stay strong and learn at your own pace, okay? Learn at your own pace. So don't be discouraged, learn at your own pace. Don't be the loser that quits 2 to 3 weeks in. Tip number 5 is knowing what abbreviations stand for. A good way of memorizing this is like whenever you're making notes, don't just write the abbreviation, make sure you write it out in full. Okay, so if you have, for example, OTP comes up in your learning material, make sure you write OTP, but don't just leave it at that. Write one-time password right next to it as well. So you're putting it in your brain that like this abbreviation stands for this. For example, in the test, I had a question that was asking about like using a password once or something like that. It was something like that. And in the multiple choice answers, there was OTP. If I knew what OTP stood for, if I knew at the time it stood for one-time password, I would have got that question correct because, you know, I know that OTP stands for one-time password. It's talking about a one-time password in the question. Put 2 and 2 together, the answer is OTP. So know your abbreviations and know what they stand for. This is a must-know tip. Tip number 6, if you pass your exam, don't straight away start jumping for joy because they're still watching you. I was on my core 1. I thought I flunked the exam. It was like the passing score was like 675. I got like 700 and something. I got 710 or 20, something like that. I thought I failed. But then when I saw the congratulations pop up, I was like, I jumped out of my seat. I kid you not. I jumped out of my seat, ran around my room going, F yeah, F yeah. You know what I'm saying? And then I come back to my seat. The proctor's like, sit your ass down. You're still in the exam. I thought 2 things were soiled after that. I thought my exam was soiled, and I thought my undies were soiled as well. So I sit my white ass back down. I'm just like, oh my gosh. I click end exam, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, did I just void my whole exam? And I go check the website to see if I got my certification, if I got my passing score. It didn't pop up. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I have to do that again. There's no way I'm passing that again. And then a couple of hours later, I saw my score. It said I passed, and I was like, oh. And then I ate some Kinder Buenos as a celebration. Tip number 7 is to start the practice test on day 1. The reason why I say this is because you'll be used to the wording of the actual exam when you're doing the practice test, and you'll get familiar with it and you'll get in the groove of actually doing an exam again. And you may be thinking like, oh, what's the point of doing practice tests if I don't even know what I'm learning yet? You will learn on the way. You'll do the practice test, you'll get answers wrong, and then you can come back to the test and see where you went wrong and then learn from where you went wrong. Like that's pretty, you know, I'm not Albert Einstein here. Make sure you're also taking note of the first score you get on the first try. This will see where you're roughly at. If you're scoring, I'd say like 73% or higher, you're probably getting ready for the exam. By the time you get to the 6th practice test, you'll probably be good. Again, when you're taking these practice exams, do not guess the answer. You're trying to learn here. Don't go for a random guess. Flag the question and come back to it at the end of the exam and then learn from there. Personally, how I went about the practice exams, I would do one. I'll do one on the day, and then I wouldn't review it, and then the next day I would review it, and then the next day take another one, and then the next day review that one. Tip number 8 is use AI. AI just helps so much with it, like explaining the answers. You can get quick analogies. You can, you just plug in the answer you got wrong into, or something you just don't really understand properly, and AI will just help so much. It's just way easier than like using a book or something like that. And before you get at me for using AI, just know that I'm gonna save your grandma one day from getting scammed with the AI knowledge that I've acquired to become a cybersecurity pro. So thank me later. Tip number 9 is it is good to study multiple resources. This is why I chose Andrew Ramdale as like the course overview guy, and then I chose Jason Dion for the practice test. For example, Andrew Ramdale would talk about zero-touch deployment, and then I would know in my head what zero-touch deployment is, but then I go to do the Jason Dion practice test, and it's talking about some unintended deployment. And I'm just like, Andrew Ramdale did not teach me about unintended deployment until I went to AI and asked what it is, and it was literally the same thing as zero-touch deployment. Zero-touch deployment and unintended deployment are the same thing. Some lecturers just use something different, and what happened in my actual exam is they used the words unintended deployment. So if I had no idea what that was, it might have been GG's for that question. Tip number 10 is using active recall. You can implement active recall into your notes. When you write down your notes, you don't answer it fully. You just leave enough for you to be like, use your brain and be like, blah, 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 does this. It won't actually tell you the whole thing. So instead of writing down your notes like this, where like it's just the full answer, like you look at it and you know the answer just like that, you're not really challenging yourself to like remember what this does. See here, it says that lets you connect and control another computer over a network or internet. Like you read that and you didn't even challenge yourself and you're writing that note down. So what I would do, something like this, right? RDP is a technology developed by Microsoft that lets you connect, and then you can challenge yourself right here. You're like, okay, it lets you connect to a computer over a network and internet to control it. And then, you'll have a look and then, hey presto, to control another computer. You know what I'm saying? So you'll challenge yourself with your notes. Don't just write the whole thing down. That's how I learn, I guess. But if you need to know like the whole thing, just use AI. Done. Another thing is you should be able to like explain a topic in the exam objectives to someone who has no idea what any of this even is. So for example, I used some of my friends. They asked me a question and I explained it to them, and I put it into terms and used analogies as well to explain what something does. So if you can't explain to someone what something does, like RDP, then you don't know what it is. Another good resource to use is flashcards. I mean, you can just pull them out every single day. You're gonna need to know the ports. You're gonna need to know what some of the acronyms stand for. So, use flashcards. Check those every other day or so. Just ingrain it into your head. Tip number 11 is the exam is multiple choice. So you want to... Tip number 11 is the test is multiple choice. If you don't know what the answer is to a question, use process of elimination. Some things sound more probable than others, and you're just going to have to use your own discretion and just pick the most probable answer if you don't know what the answer is. Also, choose the answer that is most likely going to be the first thing you do when you're attacking a situation. For example, if you get a question that says something like, oh, this person's browser is super slow, would you A, uninstall the browser and reinstall, or B, clear the browser cache? Reinstalling the app does sound good and most of the time does help, but the first thing you would do would be to clear the browser cache because it's more quicker. It could fix the problem quicker as well. The last and final tip number 12, would be to skip the PBQs at the start of the test. Now, the PBQs are like interactive questions and they take a lot more time than the other ones, so just skip them at the very start. They look like these I just went on Google Images to look at it, but it'll kind of look like this. It's something more interactive. Just skip it. There's like 5 of them at the start. Skip them. Go towards the other questions that you can get done quicker, and then at the end of the test, attack the PBQs then. But yeah, boys and girls, that about wraps up this video. If you found it helpful, please leave a like, please, and maybe subscribe as well. I'm not asking for much here, just subscribe. But no, I hope you pass your exams. I hope you don't give up. It might seem daunting, but you'll get it over and done with, and you'll be happy you did.